Hello YouTube family, thanks for joining me on my videos. If you like the videos, please give me a like. If you've not subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel to help the channel grow. Thanks for watching the videos. Sincerely, thanks for watching. Hello again YouTube family, thanks for joining me on this video. In this video I'm going to be dealing with the 10-year-old girl in Ohio who was raped, found out she was pregnant. And unfortunately for her and her family, they found out she was pregnant 3 days beyond the 6 weeks period. So in Ohio, they had a trigger law which banned abortions beyond 6 weeks. So as soon as Roe versus Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, that law went into effect. Abortions were banned beyond the 6 week point. And for this little girl who was raped, 10 years old, was raped, she became pregnant. This is one of those seemingly hypotheticals that Republicans tried to argue that will never happen. Which they do happen, unfortunately. You have women who get raped, become pregnant by their rapist. But you also have children who get raped and become pregnant by the rapist. So the girl and her family went to their doctor, found out she was pregnant 6 weeks and 3 days. 3 days past the illegal point in the state of Ohio. And her doctor called another doctor in Indiana, Dr. Caitlin Bennett. Dr. Caitlin Bernard in Indiana, seeking help in getting an abortion for this young girl. And she was able to get the abortion. Dr. Bernard has talked. She talked to that family's doctor. She's talked to the media. She's explained that even in Indiana, they have a special session of Congress of the state legislature in Indiana convening on July 25th to ban abortion in Indiana. The state lawmakers refused to address what kind of restriction they're going to put on, whether it's going to be like a 5-week, 6-week, 10-week abortion ban, whether it's going to be a out-and-out ban from the moment you become pregnant. You just can't get an abortion. They won't explain whether it be carve-outs for rape, for incest, and situations like that, for situations where the mother's life is in danger, which, with this situation, a 10-year-old girl getting raped, I would definitely say her life is in danger. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I don't know that a 10-year-old girl can physically carry a pregnancy to term and give birth. I don't know if that's a situation where it's a high likelihood that the girl would die, that the baby would, they would both die, one or the other would die. But I don't know that a 10-year-old girl's body can handle a term pregnancy and childbirth. And even if that girl was to carry, or some other 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old girl was to get pregnant and try to carry a baby to term, the physical ramifications later in life itself could be devastating. The kind of physical damage it would do to such a young person's body. But there are states that have no regard for that whatsoever. It's ideological. This ideological idea that no matter what, if somebody becomes pregnant, no matter how they become pregnant, they've got to give birth to the baby. This girl was able to travel to Indiana to get the abortion and most likely to save her life. But you have Republicans in red states right now working on legislation to make that illegal, to make traveling to another state to get an abortion illegal. You have red states right now, lawmakers in red states, trying to make contraception illegal so you can't even prevent the pregnancy to begin with. It's a dystopian time, particularly if you're a female. It's horrific. And so, like I said, Dr. Caitlin Bernard in Indiana lamented that 3 weeks down the road, she won't even be able to help the people that are coming into Indiana to seek abortions. Because right now, you have Indiana, which is bordered by Ohio and Kentucky, two states that have trigger laws that have already outlawed abortion. I think both of them are 6-week abortion bans. At the 6-week point, you can't get an abortion anymore. Most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. But at the 6-week point, I mean, it's basically an abortion ban. Unless you're extremely diligent and find out unusually early in a pregnancy that you're pregnant, you can't get an abortion in Kentucky or Ohio. Right now, abortions are still legal in Indiana, at least until the 25th of this month. And then, who knows? They may outlaw abortion altogether from the moment of conception. They may make it a 4-week ban, a 6-week ban, a 10-week ban, whatever. But 2 weeks down the road from now, a little more, it may not be legal at all in Indiana. And these people in Kentucky, Ohio, they don't have Indiana to turn to anymore. That's a shorter trip. Once they have to start seeking out other states to travel to get abortions, then the cost starts going up. And that's where you have lower income families that have no choice because they don't have the finances to travel. But Dr. Bernard lamented that she's not going to be able to provide the care she's providing now just a couple of weeks down the road. And it's going to be devastating for women and girls, even if they're not impregnated by a rape. I mean, for this situation, a 10-year-old girl was raped. She's scarred for life. I don't know that a 10-year-old girl is going to recover from that kind of trauma. But you have Republicans around the country that want to add the trauma of carrying the rapist baby and giving birth to it, to these children, to women. That's torturous, no matter how old the woman is, whether she's an adult woman or whether she's a child. And so I have some video clips. This was Dana Bash from CNN doing an interview with Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, who is a very staunch right-wing religious ideologue. Very bold supporter of Trump. And Dana Bash wanted to address this situation with her because in Kristi Noem's state, they also had a trigger law that went into effect when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Abortions became illegal in South Dakota. And let's go with clip one.
The notion of family leave. Do you support and will you support when the special session comes in there in South Dakota, paid family leave or?
I think it's important that we back up exactly what I've been saying since I'm governor, that we want stronger families, that I think it's important for children to have families around them and be with them. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we'll continue to talk about as a priority for our state.
Okay, so in that situation, you had Dana Bash asking Kristi Noem about the concept of paid family leave and subsidies for child care. That's two of the individual issues that were on the Build Back Better Act, the reconciliation bill that I talked about that Biden failed to pass. He failed to even fight for. Mostly because Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin said, yeah, we don't want to help the average peasants. We're only interested in helping our donors and ourselves. But one of the things families need is, one, paid family leave. You need leave for new mothers, new fathers. I mean, you have this crazy disconnect in the Republican Party where they like to refer to themselves as the party of family values, that they care about the family, they care about children, they care about these wholesome notions. But when it comes to legislation to actually push those wholesome notions, they're like, absolutely not. So paid family leave, that's a concept where the government guarantees leave for new mothers, new fathers. So when they have a child come into their family, they can actually take time off from work and still get paid, so they can be with their new child, so they can develop the closeness they need with their new child, so they can be parents. And Republicans have staunchly fought against any kind of funding going towards paid family leave. And then child care. You have situations in this country where there's child care centers closing around the country because they don't have enough customers, because customers can't afford the child care. And as more and more close, the costs go up, the spots available decrease, the price goes up, and even fewer people are able to afford it. And so child care right now is untenable. One of the issues you had with the economy reopening, you had all these people whining about lazy people not wanting to go to work. I did a video talking about that. Around 60 or 70% of the people who weren't going back to work were women, because with the cost of child care, they would make no money from their job. For so many of these women, the jobs they worked, if they went back to work, they would be spending their entire paycheck on child care, and it probably wouldn't even cover all the child care. It was more fiscally sound for them to just stay home, because jobs aren't paying enough, child care costs too much, and one of the solutions is have the government subsidize child care so that it's affordable, so somebody can work a job and pay a much more reasonable amount of money to have child care to watch their children while they work. But again, Republicans wholeheartedly do not support that. And neither does Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema, which is why they need to be voted out of damn office. But Joe Biden, who had those two pieces in his Build Back Better legislation, failed to even try and fight for it whatsoever. He started in the position of giving up from the get-go. And this will be the second video of Christino.
Thousands of low-income women in South Dakota without health insurance could be covered during and after pregnancy if your state expanded Medicaid under Obamacare. This is going to be on the ballot there in South Dakota in November. Mm-hmm. Will you support that?
I think it's interesting because what that does is make sure that Medicaid expansion would cover able-bodied single individuals that are able to work, and it also would include about an $80 million cost to the state. So that'll be a debate that'll be on the ballot. If it passes, I'll certainly make sure that's implemented fairly and that it's done fairly. It's something that I will continue to look at. That cost to the state is incredible, and the people that it covers are people that are single and able-bodied and able to work. We have many open jobs, very few people in our state that are on unemployment right now. And our incomes are going up faster here in South Dakota than anywhere else in the country. So the people of South Dakota economically are doing better, even though we're really struggling with the inflation of the Biden economy and what's been happening with the policies out of D.C.
Just real quick, it's on the ballot. You're a voter, obviously. Will you vote for it?
I won't be voting for it myself personally because of the tax increases that would have to happen to pay for it.
Okay, that was a question about expanded Medicaid that's ballot measure that'll be on the ballot in this November in South Dakota, which would expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. And you had the Dana Bash of CNN asking Kristi Noem if she would support that Medicaid to help, once again, families who need health care. And just like with the first question, she was asking about the paid family leave and child care. You heard Kristi Noem's answers, such as, this is a discussion we're going to have. We want stronger families. It's important for children to have families around them. And so her answer there on the first video was, no, I'm not going to support it whatsoever. I'm 100% Trump mentality. I'm modern, crazy, right-wing, ideologue Republican. I'm not going to support anything that helps average people whatsoever. And this statement, that is a discussion we're going to have. Of course it's a discussion you're going to have, but you're not going to pass it. She's absolutely not going to support it. That tells you her answer is no, I will not support it. We want stronger families. That's just a dog whistle to right-wing people who think they're pro-family. However, they continue to support politicians over and over again who vote against legislation to help families. And this whole, it's important for children to have families around them, is a statement nobody would disagree with. Yeah, children should have their families around them. It doesn't in any way address the question, because the answer to the question is no, I'm not going to support it. With the expanded Medicaid, the video we just watched, she made a comment that makes sure that Medicaid covers able-bodied individuals that are able to work. So, people can still work and get health coverage. And again, she mentioned single, able-bodied, able to work. The $80 million price tag. And credit to Dana Bash, she kept pursuing because Kristi Noem was trying to duck answering the question like she did on the first question. She was trying to avoid answering the question, but at the end of the day she said, no, I will not vote for it myself. And she says she will not vote for it due to the tax increases required to pay for it. Which the thing is, there's no tax increase required to pay for it. I mean, these states have money. You can shuffle money around from one thing to another without raising taxes. Just because you have a program that starts up doesn't mean you have to raise taxes. Her perspective is, I'm going to vilify it. I'm going to make sure people in the state don't like it, because this is a ballot measure. The Medicaid, the expanded Medicaid, that's a ballot measure. And her perspective is to try and get people in the state to not vote for it by saying there would necessarily be an increase in taxes if it passed. There does not necessarily have to be an increase in taxes just to pass the expanded Medicare. You can move money around from other things to cover that. And if that was explained to people, I'm sure there are some groups, I hope there are some groups in South Dakota that are running ads to explain just that. There doesn't have to be a tax increase. I mean, when it comes to a state's budget, $80 million is not that significant an amount of money to have health care covering more people, the expansion of Medicaid. And this whole idea that somehow, if that's expanded, you'll have people not working who are single, able-bodied, able to work. They still have to make money. The expansion of Medicaid is not providing them support, it's providing them access to health care. But the answer is no, she will not support it. There's never a time she would. She's a very hardcore right-wing Republican. And they will never support anything that actually would help average working Americans. They try to, nowadays, portray themselves as populists, and they so are not. And this is the third and last clip of Kristi Noem.
Let me ask you about that. The Indianapolis Star is reporting that a 10-year-old girl in Ohio who was 6 weeks and 3 days pregnant now has to travel across state lines to Indiana to receive an abortion. So I just, because this is a trigger law that was passed before you became governor, I wanted you to be clear. Will the state of South Dakota, going forward, force a 10-year-old in that very same situation to have a baby?
You know what I think is incredible, Dana, in this tragic story, because I heard about this last night. What's incredible is that nobody's talking about the pervert, horrible, deranged individual that raped a 10-year-old. And what are we doing about that?
I agree with you.
What are we doing about those
of
individuals
course,
that do this to these
is
children?
an important discussion to have.
Rape children, that's an issue that the Supreme Court has weighed in as well.
Listen, I totally
and as much
understand
as we talk
that,
about what we can do for that little girl, I think we also need to be addressing those sick individuals that do this to our children.
I couldn't agree more.
So
but our bodies are our bodies, and women are the ones who get pregnant. And in this case, it wasn't a woman; it was a girl. Should she have to have a child? A child. Should she have to have that baby?
Every single life is precious. This tragedy is horrific. I can't even imagine. I've never had anybody in my family or myself gone through anything like this. I can't even imagine. But in South Dakota, the law today is that the abortions are illegal except to save the life of the mother.
And you would be okay with that, a 10-year-old girl having to have a baby?
No, I'm never okay with that. In fact, that story will keep me up at night. It absolutely
will.
will.
So would you try to change the law to have an exception
in
a situation like this?
Got a 1-year-old little granddaughter named Miss Addie. I can't even imagine. What I would say is I don't believe a tragic situation should be perpetuated by another tragedy.
Well, so that was the third video, and that was where Dana Bash asked Kristi Noem about the situation of the 10-year-old girl in Ohio. She was raped. She became pregnant with the rapist baby. She had to travel to Indiana to get an abortion. In the state of South Dakota, they also have a trigger law, which banned abortions. And she was asking Kristi Noem about this situation, a tragic situation where a 10-year-old girl is raped, becomes pregnant. And she was asking Noem if she would force that girl to carry the baby, give birth. And Kristi Noem was trying to duck the question as hardcore as she could. And you saw her answers. She was talking about how it's incredible that no one is talking about the pervert that raped the girl to begin with, which, that's tragic. He committed a crime, and nobody disagrees with that's a horrible act that was done by whoever committed the rape. But people are talking about the fact that there was a horrible person that raped a 10-year-old girl. Beyond that, because people don't really care about that guy. He will go to prison and serve whatever his sentence is. The thing that outraged people was a 10-year-old girl became pregnant from rape and wasn't able to get an abortion to terminate the pregnancy. That was the shocking thing to people. That's what struck people as absurd. And Kristi Noem makes these comments. Every life is precious. Again, that's a dog whistle to her right-wing base, to the Trump base, the modern way off into Cuckooville right-wingers, particularly the right-wing religious ideologues, the evangelical people who want to hear things like that. Every life is precious. Well, sure, every life is precious. Nobody disagrees with that. Still, a 10-year-old girl was raped, became pregnant. She needed an abortion. And then she made the comment, I don't believe a tragic situation should be perpetuated by another tragedy. And that's her saying that it was a tragic situation that the 10-year-old girl got raped, but if she has an abortion, then it's another tragedy because the pregnancy was aborted. And so she didn't answer the question. And the truth is, Kristi Noem, yes, would have no problem forcing a 10-year-old girl to carry a baby and give birth, because it's an ideologue policy they're pushing, not one based on humanity, not one based on caring about people or people's lives or anything else or people's well-being. Is pushing an ideology. And so, yeah, she's not going to answer that question, because there's no way she comes out positive in answering that. If she said, I absolutely would be in favor of a 10-year-old girl getting an abortion, because it would be absurd for her to be raped, impregnated, and then be forced to carry the baby and give birth to it, that would be insane. She would end up pissing off some of her supporters. Some of her crazed right-wing supporters would get mad at her. And for Kristi Noem's state, in that situation, she ducked the question. South Dakota has an abortion law with no carve-outs for rape and incest. There is nothing protecting people like. That's why Dana Bash had the interview with Kristi Noem. That's why she asked her that question. Because in South Dakota, there's no carve-out for rape and abortion. If you get raped in South Dakota and you can't travel to another state for a abortion, you're stuck having the abortion. And beyond the no carve-out for rape and incest, South Dakota has also criminalized the act of abortion. So you take a situation where it's not necessarily a 10-year-old girl, say a 15-year-old girl, a 16-year-old girl, a 17-year-old girl, a 25-year-old college student becomes pregnant, is scared, doesn't know what to do, the abortions are illegal in her state, and she tries to perform an abortion herself. Even if she is unsuccessful, she's committed a criminal act and can go to jail. So, beyond pushing their ideology on other people, trying to force people to follow their religious ideology, they're making it a criminal act where you can be in jail just for trying to abort a pregnancy yourself. South Dakota has also banned telemedicine abortions. That's where people will call in order for the pills that will induce abortion early in pregnancy. And in South Dakota, people like that 10-year-old girl, they'll have few options. I mean, right now, traveling out of state, but beyond that, if you don't have the means to travel out of state, you're stuck in South Dakota. Whether you're raped, whether you just had sex and accidentally became pregnant, whether you're married and you and your husband are like, we can't afford a kid or another kid, there's no options. They're trying to take away access to contraceptions for women. They're trying to take the control of when you become pregnant away from women, out of women's hands. So far, I've seen nothing that would limit the availability of condoms for men, so men will have an option of, I don't want to get this girl pregnant, my girlfriend, the girl I picked up at the bar, or my wife, whoever. But women who want to control when they become a mother, or when they become a mother again. I mean, over half the women in this country who get abortions already have at least one child. They're already mothers. And they're trying to have control over their lives to determine when they become a parent for the first time or again to another child. And what the right wing is trying to do is take that choice away. Because this is not about helping people. With the line of questions Dana Bash had for Kristi Noem is to point out to everyone that it's not about helping families. It's not about helping women or protecting children. Because when it comes to legislation that would do just that, Republicans across the board vote no. It's about controlling women. It's about having control of women that right-wing people feel like they've lost. You have ideologues like Kristi Noem who will follow along with that despite the fact that she is a woman. But she wants power. And she sees power in going along with this insane, archaic, religious right-wing fervor that's going to change the dynamics of this country in a bad way. You're going to have women dying. You're still going to have children dying. You're going to have unborn children dying. It's going to be a nightmare. And unfortunately for the people of this country, the people of this country who are going to have to bear the brunt of that nightmare are women and children. And the Democrat Party right now is doing nothing. Joe Biden just recently had a press conference to announce that he's not going to do anything, basically. The Democrats are all about, we'll talk about the issue and figure out if there's something we can do, and then never come back to it. And if they do come back to it, they're like, oh, well, there was nothing we could really do. I mean, the Democrats act like they were surprised by this, despite the fact that because of the leaked majority opinion, they had about a 2-month head start to start figuring things out. Anything they try to do will be challenged in court, but at least it'll be challenged. At least they were doing something. In order for the challenge to happen, Democrats would first have to do something. Right now, they're not doing anything. And they're losing their base. Their base isn't necessarily going to vote Republican, the people who took away this right. And I don't know that right now in July, this anger over the overturning of Roe versus Wade will continue into November and affect the elections. You know, for the Democrats, they have two big talking points on this whole abortion problem. And one is they're trying to fundraise, give us money. The other is there's an election coming up in a few months. In November, show up and vote. The problem for Democrats is that in November of 2020, people did show up and vote. And they gave Democrats control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. And the Democrats are acting like, well, we have control of both houses of Congress and the presidency, but there's nothing we can do. Show up and vote for us again. And I don't know that's going to work. And like I said before, if the Democrats lose one house of Congress, Biden is getting nothing else passed unless it's Republican legislation. And this pain is going to fall on the shoulders of women and children. And it's sad. It's truly unfortunate that the Democrats have no answer for it, despite the fact that they've had time to come up with answers for it. And, yeah, it's going to get worse. Way, way worse before it gets better. Sorry about that. Thanks for watching the video. Have a good day.